It's the Walk Pod post-match phone-in. Today we're going to be discussing Luton Town 1, Burnley 4. And that was not a great game at all. But hey, it's happened now, so there's no use complaining about it. If you're watching this on YouTube, best things in life are free. How about giving this video a like and subscribing to our channel for more championship content, as well as plenty of Luton Town chat. And I'm joined by my co-host, Mark Ryman. How you doing, Mark?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm glad we're recording the pod 24 hours after the game or thereabouts, rather than the same evening.
Yeah, like for you as well, because you live quite far away, so it was a horrendous journey back for you.
Yeah, it was. It was a long old journey back, and it wasn't made better by some of the things that I listened to on the way back home. But I'm sure we'll talk about that in a bit.
Yeah, I understand it. We are talking about Rob Edwards' post-match press conference, where I believe the line that's been going around today was, other than the 4 goals, it was a very good performance, which some might say, it's hard to compute that really. Look, to the people listening, if anyone wants to voice their opinion, tell us how the game went for them, or just speak about anything else, please request to speak. We'd love to have you on. So, Mark, we were actually sitting next to each other. You were just in front of me for that game. So, what
Yeah.
did you think of? What did you? I know what you think, but it wasn't a great performance, was it, by any stretch?
I think I made my thoughts quite clear during the game, as did you. Look, I mean, I'm sure that everything will get debated tonight. The tactics, the lineup, the lack of transfers, the lack of substitutions, the lack of fight from the team. All of those things were a disappointment and have kind of contributed towards how people are feeling. You know, on paper, you lose the first game of the season to Burnley, who probably got the strongest squad in the league. Then fine, but the manner in which we lost it, the predictability of our loss, every single one of us, I don't care how optimistic you are as a Luton fan, every single one of us could see the holes in our play. And even, like I said, the most optimistic fan would see that happening, and it happened more than 4 times. I would say this, that, the most disappointing part of the night was Rob Edwards' comments on that. Look, firstly, we love Rob Edwards. Great manager. He's got us into the top division for the first time in both of our lifetimes. It's the first time we've ever seen us being promoted into that league. And particularly the way that he dealt with the Tom Lockyer situation, I think probably even more than that, stands him in amazing stead. A great man, and has been a fantastic manager for us. But don't piss on us and tell us it's raining, because it wasn't a good performance. It was not a good performance. It wasn't for standout moments from Burnley. They've got great players. We all know how good Koleosho, Odobert, and Lyle Foster are. Of course they are. But we let them through the middle of our team so many times. They could have scored numerous goals before we got the one back. So that probably disappointed me more than the performance, if I'm perfectly honest. But yeah, it wasn't a great first game of the season, was it?
No, actually, back-to-back 4-1 losses to kick off the season. Although last season's 4-1 was more palatable in the sense that it was a new division. We were playing a Brighton who, at that time, everyone thought was going to, make a push for the Champions League. Whereas this season, yes, Burnley, as you say, that they're a very strong team. They have magic throughout the team. The issue being how easy it was for them to cut through us. Similar to when Burnley came to Kenilworth Road last season, and Lyle Foster won his duel with Tom Lockyer. By the way, you mentioned Tom Lockyer. It's just tremendous news that the club released today that he's in fact back training with the club, and we should all respect his privacy and let him crack on with potentially getting back to fitness. It'd be tremendous to see him play again. I'm not holding my breath because ultimately it's down to Tom and Tom, his partner, and the team specialist to make sure that it's actually safe for him to be back and playing again. But yeah, going back to that game, Lyle Foster won that 1-on-1. It was again a ball through the middle, and that is a ball that we saw twice yesterday. And I think the worst part of it, and I actually discussed this on our YouTube channel, I gave my initial thoughts straight away after the game as soon as I got home. The system we play, whereby it's a flat midfield two, it's just far too easy to pass through. And we saw that twice, just a pass straight through. But the worst one of all was Lyle Foster pretty much running 3/4 of the pitch through on goal. And I can't remember who he slotted in, but yeah, it was just depressing at that point. I'd had enough, but I stayed to the final whistle anyway. But the reality is, what will Rob Edwards do about it? Like, we all know that the 3-4-3 is not working. We all know that. But the reality is, what is Rob Edwards going to do about it? Does he back his system? Is he going to keep playing it until it becomes so apparent that, we're conceding 3-4 goals a game? Or is he going to change it up? Or potentially does Marvelous Nakamba coming into the team in one of those double pivot roles, maybe next to Shandon Baptiste, does that make a difference at all?
Yeah, it makes a difference. It doesn't solve all the problems. And as you said in your post-match earlier, after the match, this system was developed with Sambi Lokonga and Ross Barkley. I don't care who we sign before the end of the window. We're not getting those two back, and we are always going to be vulnerable for that. Do I think he'll change it? Well, history has taught us last year at least, after the Brighton game and probably the Newcastle one that followed it, he's unlikely to. He said already on Three Counties, this is the way we play. This is our identity.
But he also
he seems he's married to the system.
He also said straight away after that, maybe our defenders are not good enough to play that system. But he's going to play it anyway, right?
Yeah, that's even more terrifying. In a way, I think what he was probably hinting at is that, that we'll be more effective in that system when the players that are injured come back, whenever that is. But I don't think that Marv solves that problem. I also don't think that Reece Burke, Amari Bell coming back solves that problem either. Because as good as they are, there is no getting round the overload in midfield. You cannot rely on Shandon Baptiste on his own and a teenager, more or less a teenager, to cope with the midfield of Burnley, or even a lot of midfielders in the Championship. It's all very well and good saying, well, Burnley are a good team, and they are a good team. They are a great team. But there are a lot of good midfields in the Championship that will see that game and think, yeah, we can do that. We can score at least 2 or 3 goals. I mean, Pompey, for example, a team that's just come up, did score 3 goals basically out of nothing through a counter-attack, through direct balls. We're in real trouble, I think, on Saturday with that same tactic, because I think that's exactly what they did against, let's be fair, a much better Leeds side than we currently are. So it's a real worry.
It is so worrying. But you mentioned Amari Bell. It was so good to see him back in the team. It really was. And hopefully he actually makes a start soon, but not at the risk of him blowing out his hamstring again. Because right now we need defensive reinforcements. We need players back pretty much as soon as possible. Look, guys, if anyone wants to jump on, give us their thoughts, please do. Otherwise, you're just going to hear us prattling on and on, which isn't a problem because we both absolutely love to talk. How about our business in the transfer market, Mark? My opinion is that I would like to reserve judgment myself until September 1st. Although, who was that fella that was pictured between Marv Nicamber and Jordan Clark, and why is the whole of Twitter in uproar about him?
Yeah, the guy that played for Swansea but was let go because he had too many injuries. Sounds like it's
But
perfect
yeah,
fit into our team.
exactly what we go for, right?
To be honest, I've tried to stay off Twitter quite a lot for the last 24 hours for obvious reasons, as many Luton fans have. So I haven't really done much research on it. I think, obviously he was there and he was there with Clark and Nakamba, I think, wasn't he? But in terms of our transfer business, I'll be positive because I feel like I have been nothing but moaned since the start of this. It wasn't my intention, I promise. But in terms of the business, yeah, there are the obvious negatives that people will talk about. The two players we have signed look great. They do look really good, and they look like they're going to make a difference. Shanda Baptiste, of course, made the goal. Lovely cross, as he had a wonderful cross against Celta Vigo as well. He's going to be a real player for us. And I think Ruel Walters um, looked really good at times, particularly going forward. I can't remember what it was. I think it was in the second half when he beat his man on the right hand side and put dangerous ball in the box. That, really good bit of skill, quick going forwards. And I think that, a bit of a baptism of fire when you're asked to play one on one with the attack and the wingers that Burnley have got. I think it's tough. And even, Masengo was a handful last night as well. I thought he played very well in the second half when he was on. So I think those two have been great. The obvious is the obvious. At the moment, we haven't signed the players that we need to keep our squad strong, and to give us a realistic chance of finishing in the playoffs or the automatics. And yes, Gary Sweet in his programme note said that we're going to do our big business towards the end. Whether that's just placating people for a couple of weeks, we will find out, won't we? As you said, we'll reserve judgment. But as I said to the people I went to the game with, I understand that principle, but it does put us on a bit of a bit of a catch-up job. Because if we're going to play like that for the next few games, September the 1st is a few games away still. That's a lot of catch up to be near the top of the league, So, yeah, of course, until the deals are done and over the line and stuff, it's a worry. And when you see Sheffield United doing the business they have, fine. And I get it. I don't want to break our wage structure. I just think that sometimes we can evolve slightly. We don't need to revolutionise the way we do business. The way we've done business is the reason why we are where we are. And, 2020 deserve all of the plaudits for that. But I think that we have to realise that we are a bigger team in terms of money, in terms of expenditure, and teams will want that money back, and rightly so, from parachute payment sides. And sometimes we've probably got to bite the bullet and say we're going to have to evolve our policy slightly to accommodate that. But again, we'll see what happens by September the 1st.
Look, it definitely is starting to look like we're going to have to stretch ourselves. Well, I say stretch ourselves. Like we've had a huge windfall, just 9 million from Ross Barkley and Ryan Giles, as well as the parachute payments from last season. There is no reason why we can't extend ourselves. Like for instance, if we were going to buy a player for 5 million, and the club, the club we approach now say, oh yeah, well it's actually 8 million for you. That there's no reason not to do that because after all, the transfer fees amortized over the length of the contract anyway. So you spend it for 8 mil, you give someone a 4 year contract, you're only spending like 2 million a year. It's not absolutely massive. Yeah, sure, there are taxes and other things associated with buying a player for a large fee, as I believe David Wilkinson said on our podcast last season. But the reality is, if you want to play with the big boys, if you want to be towards the top half of the table, you got to spend like them, and that is the reality of the situation, sadly. But I guess we will see what we do towards the end of the transfer window. I just hope we don't leave it too late. I hope we also don't let people leave very late and then sort of get forced into replacing them slapdash, you know. I'd like to do our business very sensibly. Right, we got someone calling in. It's Mark the Hatter. Hello, Mark. You are on. How are you doing, mate? Unmute yourself.
Sorry, Ollie, you talking to me?
I am talking to you, yeah.
Sorry, I
Oh,
only
two
caught, I,
Marks on here.
no, sorry, I only caught half of what you said there. My phone was playing up. How are you getting on, Ollie? Okay.
Yeah, doing all right. Doing all right. Really liked your article that went out today. Good
Oh,
stuff.
thanks. Thanks. Yeah, if anyone's feeling charitable, give it a read. I just caught the back end of what you were saying there with regards to transfers, and I don't know if I'm being too harsh here, but I think that whilst the emphasis on transfers is obviously important, we need quite clearly 2 or 3 players at a minimum, and hopefully we go for quality and spend however much you might need to be on a player, and that price might have gone up, like we said, in the last 24 hours. But I think more importantly, and I think potentially more will have a greater influence, will be whether Rob Edwards is happy to kind of park this focus on football philosophy and ideology when it comes to a certain shape, and be willing to adapt the game to the teams that we're playing, because I think he showed halfway through last season that he was happy to do so, and we switched. And then we got to the Brighton game, brilliant night, massive win, 4-0 at home, found something that worked, but haven't changed since. No matter what, when we quite clearly didn't have 3 centre halves, sometimes we had 1 centre half, we still played 3 centre halves, rather than going 4-4-2, well, not 4-4-2, but 4 at the back. I just hope that he is willing to be a bit more flexible, and I hope that last night was a bit of a wake up call with regard to that. And I'm a big fan of Rob Edwards, but I do think tactically he can fall short sometimes, and that there's nothing wrong with that. No manager's going to be perfect, especially at the level that we're at. So yeah, I hope he's willing to kind of be a bit more flexible on that front.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. That was a really well made point. Yeah, I think he changed it up maybe after 8 games, and we did actually look a whole lot more solid. That was the thing, and we went from being a team that was in games losing by 1 goal, with the exception of Aston Villa and Brentford, to a game that was, after that Brighton game, we just became the most open team and the most easy team to play through. Yes, there was quality in the league, but I just hope, and I was talking to my dad about this last night on the way home, I hope there are people around Rob Edwards that will say, look, this just isn't working. We got to go back to the fundamentals of football here, and just be tough to break down, because I feel those fundamentals of football was the foundations of what Rob Edwards built that promotion winning side on. He took NJ's team and he, mixed in a bit of football magic as well. And we came out with a promotion winning side, pretty much, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, yeah, he did, and he did a great job at that point in time, and I'm certainly still will do a great job. But yeah, we can't place too much emphasis on one game as a 46 game season. Championship seasons are really tough, and yeah, it's a marathon, not a sprint. But equally, like you say, we've known the kind of form and rigidity that we've had since January and since that Brighton game. So we've got to be willing to change it, because, for example, last night we were playing a really high line. We were trying to press high, but we weren't pressing very well as a team. Therefore, if the press is loose, if the press isn't right on top of them, then they can very easily just ping a ball over the top, and which is as simple as that. They did that quite a few times, and I think it resulted in 2 goals, didn't it? So that's just an example where if we're going to play with the philosophy, it's got to be bang on, and if it isn't working, then change it. As much as I loathe Scott Parker, the biggest con man in football, it's how the hell he keeps walking into jobs, and people maybe will say he's got promoted several times, but he gets at Fulham and Bournemouth or wherever else he's squirmed his way into, he gets hundreds of millions of pounds to spend and gets them up. Well done. I could get a team up £100 million, but anyway, I couldn't. But yeah, he did well last night. Being fair to him, he was tactically astute. He changed Burnley's game to kind of exploit our weaknesses, and yeah, those balls into Lyle Foster where he was dropping in front of the back three. Their right back or left back was pinging it into him. Foster lays it off, and then they're off again, and it worked so many times.
Yeah, it's hopefully food for thought, and we can take that into the Pompey game and just, cut that out. Hopefully when we line up against Portsmouth, we see a third man in the middle and maybe a change in shape. Who knows? Brocky, thank you very much for coming on tonight, mate. Really appreciate it.
No worries, Ollie. Cheers, Mark.
Right.
Take care, mate.
Take care. Right, next up we got Fergus. Fergus, thank you very much for waiting patiently. How are you doing, mate?
Hey, how's things? How are you keeping?
Yeah, doing good, mate. Doing good. What
Good
were your thoughts of the game last night?
Again, similar thing there as Mark. It's this high line, adapting. We've just been so open for such a long period of time in games now that it's so easy to play through us. Any sort of kind of angle ball in around the centre back, massive trouble, just massive trouble, and it's a real big worry. And you'd have to be questioned as well. If you're sitting on the bench, I kind of will say you've 2 teenagers in there, and you'd be kind of questioning, God Almighty, where do I come in here? In relation to the lad from Reading, forget his name there just for a second. You're just. I know it's only one game. It's one game into the season. Let's not hit the panic button. But this has been very evident for the last 20 games that this is becoming a huge problem.
It has indeed. And do you foresee Rob Edwards potentially changing something up for the next game? Would you like to see him change it up?
Yeah, I think we just need to kind of adapt a little bit better in matches. It's funny, I keep going back to the Aston Villa match or the Chelsea match, things like that, and just the liability for the silly goals, Manchester United at home. We brought so much on ourselves in matches. I think we just need to be a little bit tougher to play. Obviously I want to play good football. I want to see the team expressing themselves and things like that. We obviously don't have a Barkley or Lakonga there. Obviously, again, the transfer market is a bit of a worry. They're saying that hopefully by September 1st, we'll have a couple of bodies in. You want the right people, obviously, and there's a premium to be paid. But my worry is just the adaptability in match to match, playing your opposition. Burnley have absolute flyers on the wide. Foster well able to hold it up and run, whatever. We left ourselves so open last night, and I just think game to game, you need to be able to adapt to your opposition a little bit better. And I think Rob Edwards is a great coach and whatnot, but I do feel that I just feel last year, even going back harping on, but I think going back a year, I think we made life a hell of a lot more difficult for ourselves in a situation where we'd actually gotten ourselves into a good position. I just felt that we were way too open, and especially with the depth of the squad and everything like that, when injuries started kicking in, we just made life way, way too hard for ourselves in that situation. And it looks, again, after last night, we're just too easy to play through. And as I said, Baptiste played well. Walters looks a player. But I just feel that we needed to get bodies in before the start of the season. Pre-season, I think, was a bit of an inkling to what was going to come, in truth.
So the Walk Pod, you mentioned you want bodies in. So the Walk Pod, put out a graphic today that said 22 players require registration. There are 3 places that remain in the squad. Where do you want to see the reinforcements brought in?
2 centre mids and a CB. Being honest
Yeah,
about it. 2
not the
centre
other
mids
way
and a
round.
CB.
You
No,
don't want to see 2 centre backs in?
no. 2 centre mids. Need a deep line centre mid because Nakamba doesn't look like he's been injured for the bones of a year now, solid. And we need someone like that can just pivot and link the whole thing together. But we need someone that can actually dictate the game. There was a lot of talk about Ben Sheaf and the likes of that. We need someone like, look, Barkley was, he is what he is. He's an outstanding footballer. You watch him the night of the Arsenal game, he dominated Odegaard, who's one of the best players in the world. Call a spade a spade. That's how good that guy can be on a night. He just dictates the ball. He made us so good. But it was the other bits around us that let us down. We need to get in a good holding CDM and a baller. Simple as, very simple. I'm not overly as worried about centre backs because if actually you could take a bit of pressure off them, and I think if we play with a bit more, not trying to press as much as we are, we need to obviously trust ourselves, but I just think we're leaving ourselves a little bit too open. I think when get a couple of wins under our belt, a bit more confidence, and then you can maybe express yourself a little bit more.
Amazing. Thank you very much for joining
More
us,
than welcome, mate.
Fergus.
Cheers,
Really
buddy.
appreciate it. Yes, and Mark, I saw you agreeing vociferously with Fergus when he was talking there.
Yeah,
I mean,
just the what Fergus was saying with regards to the centre of the park and what we.
My bad. Sorry, Brocky. I muted you there. But both Marks were actually agreeing vociferously there.
Oh, sorry, Mark. Sorry. I'll let the better Mark.
We agree. It's fine. Same name, same.
Yeah, sorry, Mark. I'll let the better Mark speak. Sorry, mate.
You're both great Marks.
Go for it, Mark.
I'm probably going to say the same thing. But definitely, the middle of the park is a much bigger need. I think a few of us have said the same thing. I would add to what Fergus said because we're talking about bite in the team. Actually, apart from tactics, apart from formation, apart from the obvious gaps in our squad, we do not look the same aggressive front-footed team, and we haven't done for a while at Kenilworth Road. And I think that needs pointing out as well. What has happened to the absolute shithousery that ran through our team? I mean, Tom Lockyer is a big part of that, of course, and without him, that makes a big difference. But I said this last season as well in one of the phone-ins that we had, that the one thing I would say Nathan Jones has over Rob Edwards is the ability to shithouse your way through a game, but also to have that aggressive fight. A couple of times, Burnley midfielders, and I think the time that Lyle Foster ran basically the length of the pitch, got through. There were at least 2 or 3 players that could have just taken him out. Same as our show against Newcastle and Sheffield United last season. Take those players out. Take the yellow card. Get them in the stand. The crowd will get more into the game. It's 2-1 at that point, or 3-1, whatever the score was. But where is that fight as well? Because we can get all the players that we want. There is definitely, or there feels like there is less fight in that team at home, particularly. Maybe not so much away, but at home. That's the only thing I was going to add, apart from the obvious midfielder. I think getting a really good playmaker, defensive midfielder is so difficult. I mean, Ross Barkley, as most of us will say, is probably the best player I've seen in my lifetime. So we're not going to get that player every window. Ben Sheaf, what a player. There's a reason why Coventry have made him their club captain. He's not, I would love to have him. He's not coming to us. I can't see in a million years that Ben Sheaf would come to us from Coventry this season. If we're in the Prem, maybe differently, but those players are really hard to get hold of. So to bank your entire system on that's tough. But yeah, just about the fight really is the one thing I'd add to what Fergus was saying earlier.
Yeah, you want that nastiness, you want that bite, that sort of, dare I say it, it's the Luton way really, because you've got to get that edge on your opponent, no matter, even if it is being, super duper dirty. you just got to get that edge. Like going back to the days of Kevin Nichols, where off the ball he's just hacking away at someone else in the midfield or getting in the ref's ear. You just got to be dirty. You can't be Mr. Nicey Nice and always play beautiful football. You got to mix it. That's how you got to get an edge any way you can. I'd like to see a bit more of that this season. And look, there is still time. There is still time. But not for us, because we decided to make this half an hour, didn't we? But I'd like to shout out our YouTube channel. We just dropped our first weekly podcast that we record live in the Bricklayers Arms. It's, I know I sound biased. It's really great. It's beautifully edited. We have a very talented editor on board who made it really extra special, multi-cameras, and it's a lot of fun. It's just four guys having a drink in a pub, chatting football, chatting about the championship. So head over to our YouTube channel, check that out. Also a big shout out to our audio partners, Black Star Amplification and Carry On, for helping us level up this podcast. Also a massive shout out and thanks to our sponsors, The Record Shop in Amersham. If you collect vinyl, go check out that shop. They have thousands of LPs. But let's not dwell on this game that's happened, because we have Portsmouth up next and we know what we have to do. The team know what they have to do, and Rob Edwards knows what he has to do. So everyone, have a great week. Come on, you Hatters.